So in this particular lecture, let's go ahead and let's learn how you could set up Tailwind for your Django project. So in order to set up Tailwind for Django, first of all, you need to make sure that you have installed Tailwind in your project folder. So in order to do that, first of all, you need to make sure that your computer has Node. So simply go to nodejs.org. If you don't have Node.js, simply download the LTS version, which is the long-term supported version. And the reason why we need to download Node is because we need to use the Node package manager to be able to install Tailwind for our project. Now, once Node is installed, the installation setup for Node is quite simple. You simply have to download this, go through the installation wizard, and once the installation is complete, now you could actually use npm to install Tailwind. Now, let's go ahead and let's set up Tailwind for our project. So I'll open up VS Code here. And the very first thing which you need to understand here is you need to understand the project structure. So right now we have the project, which is social project. And what you need to do is that you need to go into this particular project directory. So in order to go up over here, I'll open up the terminal and let's stop the server and let me show you the exact path where you need to go. So here, let me clear up the screen, and right now, as you can see, we are into the social project, which is nothing but the container of our project, and that's where exactly you need to go. So if you type in ls here, you should be able to see all the apps. So here, as you can see, you are able to see posts and users. So here is where exactly you need to go, and once you are in there, this is where you want to install Tailwind. But even before installing Tailwind, we have to set up a package.json file, which is going to contain all the Node modules which are going to be installed along with Tailwind. And in order to keep track of those specific files, we need the package.json file. So here, in order to create a package.json file inside the social project, you would type in npm init-y. So this is going to initialize a package.json file, and -y is a flag which is being set so as to set all the default options. So hit enter and let's head back to VS Code, and here you should be able to see that if I go to social project, I have now the package.json file. So this is what exactly we need. Now here, if I go to package.json, here you will be able to see the different packages which are installed. So currently we do not have any packages installed, but now we need to install Tailwind CSS2 over here. So here let's hit clear, and the version of Tailwind we want to install is Tailwind CSS2. So here I would say npm install Tailwind CSS at 2.2.16. So make sure that you install the exact version of Tailwind which is specified here, or else you're going to face some issues. So simply hit enter, and that's actually going to install Tailwind for you. So it's going to take a while for Tailwind to get set up and get installed. And as you can see, now we have Tailwind CSS2 added as a dependency here. Now once Tailwind is installed, let's go ahead and let's get started working with Tailwind. But before working with Tailwind, you really need to understand the way in which Tailwind works. So the way in which Tailwind works is that Tailwind has a bunch of utility classes. And now you have to use these utility classes and you need to compile them. And when you compile those particular classes, they actually generate a CSS file. And that CSS file has a whole bunch of CSS code with a whole bunch of CSS classes. And you simply need to use those classes and assign it to the HTML elements which you have in your app. So your app could be a Django app, it could be a simple HTML page, or it could also be a React app which contains multiple components. So let's go ahead and let's do that. So first of all, you need to understand that we need to have a source file. We compile that source file in Tailwind, and then you get another output file, and then you link that output file to your Django pages which you have. So let's first go ahead and let's create a source directory, and we are specifically going to create that particular directory in the users app. And the reason why we are going to do it in the users app is because it's the users app which has this base template from which we are extending. So here we will be creating the source folder in the users app. So in there, you have to go inside users. And inside the users app, first of all, we need to create a static directory. And the reason why we need a static directory is because as we are uploading a CSS file in there, and that is a static asset, that means we need to create a static folder in there. So let's go ahead, go inside the users app, create a new folder called as static. And in the static directory, let's create another folder called as users. And in this particular users app is where we are actually going to create that particular the source file for Tailwind. So let's name this particular source file as tw.css. So I'll create a new file, call it as tw.css. So this is going to be our source file. And in this source file, you simply have to write 3 lines of code. So you have to write at Tailwind base, which is the base utility class, at Tailwind utilities, and then finally at Tailwind components. So once you have these particular base classes, now the Tailwind has to build from these particular classes which you have. So now once these classes are done, now we actually need to go ahead and generate a dynamic file, which is going to be a file which contains a whole bunch of CSS code. And in order to generate that, you need to execute a long and lengthy command. And if you want to execute that command multiple times, it's actually better to save that command into something. In order to do that, what we do is we go inside the package.json file which we have. Now keep in mind that we have 2 files here, package log.json and package.json. So make sure that you don't touch this file and instead only work with package.json. And in here, we create a script to build the Tailwind files from the source file. So give a comma at the end for the test, and we will create our very own script here. And let's name that script as build. And once we have this build script, this is basically going to say Tailwind build, and then we want to build from the source file which we have, and the source file is nothing but the file which is tw.css. And here we need to specify the path of this file. So this file is actually present in our users app. So I would say users/static/users/tw.css, and we want to generate an output from this file. So I would say -o, and then we need to specify the source file which needs to be generated. So we want to generate the source file inside the users app. So here I would say users, and we want it to be present in static, again users, and then I want to name that file as styles.css. So once we do that, we are pretty much good to go. So let's save this, and once this thing is saved, now whenever we execute this build command, the file which is style.css should be generated up over here. So let's see if that thing works out. So make sure that you enter the social project, and here you need to execute the build command, which is this command which we have just created. So you would simply say npm run build, hit enter, and that's actually going to build from the source file which we have, and it's going to create this output file which is styles.css. So let's see if that file is created. So it's going to take a while for this thing to happen, and here it says done. Now if you go back here, you will be able to see that now we have a styles.css file, and this style.css file has a whole bunch of CSS in here. So if you take a look at this, it has probably tens of thousands of lines of CSS code, and the CSS code which you have here are pretty much the basic Tailwind classes which we have. Now what you need to do is, whenever you have to style a particular element, you simply have to use any one of these classes here. Now the final part which is remaining is that once you have this file created, now you need to link this particular file to all your Django project. And one of the best ways to do that is by simply linking it to the base.html file which you have, and that's because we are basically linking the base.html file to every template which we have in our app. So in the head tag right up over here, I simply need to add a link to the style sheet. And the style sheet is present in the users app. It's present in the static folder. So here I'll make use of static. So here I would say static, and then specify the path as users/styles.css. So as soon as I do that, and if I go back here, if I hit refresh, we get an error, and that's because the project is not running. So let's run the project. Let's get back over here. If I hit refresh, as you can see now the font over here appears to be different. And if your font appears to be different on the different pages here, this basically means that the Tailwind has been loaded. And the font on the login page did not change because we have not extended the login page to use the base template. But if you do that, like if you go to login and if you make this thing extend from the base template, like the other pages which you have. So for example, if you go to the edit page, this actually inherits from base template. So this will have the Tailwind styling. So let's get back here, go to edit. Yeah, as you can see now, this particular thing has the Tailwind styling. So that means we have successfully added Tailwinds to our entire Django project, and only the pages which do not have that styling, we simply need to make them extend the base template. So once this thing is done, from the next lecture onwards, we will go ahead and we will start styling up the index page from scratch. So this is the index page right here. So we are going to add a navigation bar to this index page, and we are also going to add a nice layout to this particular user posts page. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.